Bob, Julian, welcome to the channel. It's really great to have you here on YouTube to talk about career stuff.
Hey, Mike. It's good to be back. Good to see you.
Hey,
See ya.
Mike. Hey, YouTube. Thanks for having us back. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's really great to see you guys. We've done a bunch of stuff together. And, I've been thinking about looking back on my career. I've been a software developer for, oh my goodness, I think we're starting to close in on 25 years, a really long time. And there's all these cool phases of your career. And I know there's many people out there listening who are maybe earlier stage or they're in a place where they're like, I'd like to move to a different step or to do something slightly different. And you both are thinking a whole lot about what this and coaching folks with your PDM program. So, let's spend a little time and just talk about how you've grown your career and advice you have for people to do the same. Maybe help some folks out there.
Yeah, thanks for having us, of course. And yeah, everyone, as Mike said, Bob and I, we coach a lot of people through our PyBites Developer Mindset program. And quite often the goal is for people to land a Python developer job, or some sort of developer job involving Python. And so what we've done today with in advance of this, Bob and I have put together a list of a few things that are the common denominators in that process. What are the things that people need to be doing in order to land that Python developer job, or at least best situate themselves to be able to get it? So we're going to kick it off. Bob, you want to take number one, tech skills?
Sure thing. Number one, tech skills. So we talk a lot about mindset and we'll get there throughout this interview. But of course, first and foremost are the tech skills, right? And you can break it down. Like you need to master, there are many, right? But you can also bring it back to the essentials. So in this context, for this audience, and for what we do, it's of course the Python, right? So strong Python foundation is important. You have the built-ins. There's a big standard library. And there's also like pretty popular modules like Pydantic and Fast API, right? So have a good overview, but the core Python skills are fundamental. And then I would say data structures, like know how to write performant code, know when to use a list or a set or dictionary, tuples. The collections module, for example, that you really want to grasp because it will lead to more effective code. How to write tests. So especially when you're going to work as a developer in a bigger team and you have to roll out new features, fixing bugs, there will be a test suite, or maybe there isn't, but you're definitely are expected to deliver your code with tests. It will make your code more maintainable, and it just shows that you write quality code. And two more, just to keep this quite short. Tooling is pretty important here as well, right? There are linters, testing tools, CI/CD. Yeah, that all leads to better quality code and you being more effective as a developer. And again, as you're working in a team, the team is using those tools as well. So you're expected to embrace that. Plus, I'm personally a big fan of the command line, right? And it will just make you more effective.
When people think about having Python skills, there's a lot of different definitions of what Python is. Somebody might say, well, I have experience with Python. I know the language so well. I know for loops, I know try, except, I know all these things. The person on the other side asking them if they know Python might really mean, do you know the libraries that are commonly used, right? Do I know SQL Alchemy? Do I know Flask? Do I know Fast API? And there's just these different tiers or these different layers of Python, the standard library, the language, the ecosystem, and having a little bit of skill in each of those is really important, right? It's easy to focus on one, like for example, the language, and say, well, I really know Python well. But when someone else asks you if they know Python or we need this experience for this Python job, it might be at a different layer that they're asking about. So it's really important to keep in mind exactly what the requirements or what you're trying to get out of some kind of lesson is.
And I'll just say really quickly, the other thing is, and this is slightly off topic, but on topic, the interview, right? When you're chatting with people, don't oversell it, so it's always better to be a little more humble with what you know. So it's one of the things I say on people's resumes. So if you put down that you know Python, don't do that whole matrix where you say I'm advanced with Python or I'm intermediate with Python, because and all those different subsets, because it's very subjective. And if the hiring manager or your technical recruiter or whoever happens to see that, they'll say, "Ooh, advanced with Python," and then they'll throw you things based on what you've said. And then you might sit there and be like, "Oh God, I don't know what that means."
That's really good advice, because a lot of times I've been on the hiring side, the hiring manager, technical review side of these discussions before as well. And if somebody presents themselves as having some kind of expert level experience and they really don't, and you feel like they're lying, then all the other stuff that they presented is out the window. On the other hand, if they undersell it and like, but I'm really ready to learn, I'm really, that's fine. Right. But if you feel like you're misrepresenting yourself, the person interviewing you does, then that's a pretty much the kiss of death. It's the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Julian, what's your next tip number 2?
Number 2. All right. So it's getting out there with when it comes to networking, right? So what you really need to do is utilize your LinkedIn network. And if you don't have one, you need to start building one yesterday. And that a lot of people, their immediate thought is, I don't have anyone I can connect with. Think about your family and friends. So start with them. Think about the people that you went to school with. Think about the people that you grew up with, people that you meet at parties, right? It's actually a really low key way of connecting with people rather than asking them for their Instagram or their Facebook or something like that, because it is, for better or worse, a professional platform. People mainly talk about work stuff on there. And so when you start building out this network, you'll start to see connections between all the people that you know, people that are mutual connections, and you really build up this little network that you can engage and talk with. So if you are seeking a job, really hit that network. So be posting every day, ask questions, talk about things that you're passionate about in the field that you want to get into, and go and speak to these people. So don't be afraid to reach out. Don't be afraid to talk to hiring managers. Don't be afraid to ask friends who have contacts at the company that you want to work at. Don't be afraid to ask them for support, for a connection, because that's where most of the job opportunities come from. They come through your connections. Go and attend industry events is another tip that I've got here. So go to PyCon, being a Python thing we're talking about here.
People might know at PyCon, they might not know that at PyCon, there's actually an entire day that the expo floor is dedicated just to hiring and job seeking matchmaking. It's called, I think it's just jobs fair or something like that,
the
right?
Jobs fair, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a really great place to go around and talk to people, see what they want. Like when you talk to them, they say, we want people who can, they said they wanted people using fast API. I thought it was Django everybody wanted, or vice versa, right? Like, okay, it'll give you a lot of information, and it's kind of a practice lightweight interview anyway. You can just do it over and over and over. So absolutely, these are good ideas. And user group meetups, they almost always, for some reason, seem to be flocked with recruiters saying, we're hiring for this, we're hiring for that. There's another chance that's more local.
Yep. So you can, it's the website meetup.com.
Meetup.com, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people we know through our community use that to find events close to them, just online community events, whether it be in-person things, whatever, right? So lots of things out there for you to go and network and build your LinkedIn network as well. And the last thing I'll add, which you touched on there, Mike, when you are talking with these different companies and places like that, you'll start to learn what the technology trends are at the moment. So it's really important that you keep up to date with those tech trends. So a perfect example right now is that AI is everywhere. So you don't have to know it in and out, obviously, but educate a little bit, tinker with the tools, play with it a little bit so that you can have a discussion. So when you get into these interviews, which we'll talk about in a bit, you can actually have a knowledgeable connection and discussion with the person you're talking with. But that's it for that one. I think that's good.
Tip number 3.
Number 3, show your work and experience.
Yeah.
And so going back to that, I'm advanced Python. What does that mean, right? Like, if you just say that, there's nothing that really backs that up. So especially in in the context of getting a dev job, you need to start building up your portfolio. You need to show what you've done, right? Projects, open source contributions. And it's also a great way to, because you can go pretty theoretical with this stuff. But again, as we said before, Python in the real world, in the context of a real app, it changes everything, right? Like people don't usually get stuck on the Python syntax. No, they get stuck on the integration, right? On the dependency hell and all that related stuff we already mentioned before. And doing projects and showing that work is a great way. It's a double win, right? You get just way more experienced and you can show, you have something to show for.
The software developer space and the tech space, more than many other areas, if you can show that you can do some project or accomplish some task, like yes, you can build that API that's fast, or yes, you can talk to that database that was used to be slow. If you can show that, people don't care what your old experience was. They don't care whether you have a PhD or you dropped out of high school. Like if you can make the database go fast, you're hired. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Whereas a lot of them, like if I wanted to be an engineer or a doctor, it doesn't matter how good I could show somebody I could do an operation. They will not let me, right?
Yeah.
But in software, you can. And so this showing your work, it's almost as important as having a degree, I think.
Yeah. And people sometimes obsess over CS degrees, and they have their place. But as you say, right, if you have a strong portfolio and can show, or you have a very high profile open source project, that's golden, right? And so yeah, that's critical.
GitHub repo.
GitHub repo, and we also recommend to start a tech blog.
Important.
Blogs are still working.
Okay, tech blog.
Yeah.
Yeah. Blogs and email, these things are underrated. They don't get all the fanfare they used to, but they're valuable.
You hone your writing skills. RSS readers still exist. People read that stuff. Yeah.
I love
Google
my RSS
indexes
reader.
it. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, for sure. Julian, you touched on interviewing before. Maybe riff on that a bit more as number 4.
Yeah, so this is number 4, and this is a great segue from what we just talked about. With your interview, probably the biggest hurdle people have is that they're scared. Right? There's a confidence thing there. There's imposter syndrome, and it's just the overall way that the industry organizes interviews in general is pretty. I have opinions of that, and we can talk about that another time. But it can be pretty tough on people, and in my opinion, it doesn't get the best out of people. But the way it is right now, what we coach people through is building their confidence in that interview. So one of the greatest ways to do that is what we just talked about in number 3, which is to show your work and experience. When you have that GitHub portfolio, when you have that open source project that you're contributing to, that's the ace up your sleeve. That's what gives you confidence in that interview, because you have something to show for your time and effort, and you can talk about that. It lets you turn that interview into a discussion. In some cases, you can even, that tech interview, we know those tech interviews is quite scary and daunting for a lot of people. In many cases, you can actually turn that on its head and say, well, rather than interview me on my tech, here's all the stuff I've been working on that I think will suit what it is you want to interview me on. Why don't we go through that together and talk about it? And I'll give you the answers that you want to know my skill level. We can talk about decisions I made. So as you do this, you are building practice, and that practice of doing these interviews, of talking about your skill set, of talking about the tech side that you've had experience with, you'll just get better and stronger and more confident. So it is a numbers game as well as a result. Don't expect one interview to land one job, right? You're going to have to put many out there, and you cannot let it get to you that you don't get a call back, that recruiters don't respond, that your CV just goes out there into the ether and disappears, right? You have to apply. You have to keep going. Every time you get knocked down by a failed attempt at getting a job, then you just get back up and keep going. You take the experience and run with it. And the last thing I'll add is that to make that interview as successful as possible, do what you can to turn it into a conversation where you're also interviewing them. So it's just, and the way I try and phrase this to help build people's confidence is that you're going to spend 40 hours a week plus sometimes with these people, generally more time that you're going to spend at home with your family or your loved ones or friends, whatever. You better be damn sure that they're the people that you want to be spending that time with. So go and interview them, talk to them, throw questions at them, turn it into a two-way conversation. If it's only them talking at you, asking questions, it's not a great experience. You want it to be a discussion where you can both have a
it's
say.
not as memorable for the company hiring you either.
Exactly.
I would also add to this, I feel like a lot of people, when they're getting into the tech industry or into programming in general, they see the FANGs of the world. They see the giant tech companies like, oh gosh, if I could get one at Google, and if I don't get it at Google, maybe it's Facebook I should look at. I would say those might not even be the best first job in tech type of places. You get very pigeonholed into doing one little tiny thing without a lot of flexibility. You don't get to learn as broadly. If you could find a small company like a regional dental office that needs you to automate a whole bunch of stuff where you're going to be one or two developers there, you'll learn so much more. You'll be able to have a bigger impact. And it's not as competitive of a space as trying to be lead engineer at Google. You're there with some any programming skill is a huge bonus to some of these smaller non-tech, traditionally tech companies.
Yeah.
And so have a broad view of what's possible for you, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't be distracted by the glamour of some of the company names that are out there, because it's not always greener on that side. Good point.
Right. If you get a job at Google, congratulations, that's awesome. But that doesn't, if you don't, that doesn't mean, well, you're out of options, right? There's a bunch of other cool ones. If you study biology, look for something that has to do with biology plus programming. You got a way better special advantage in that situation, for example.
Maybe also not focus on a software developer title per se. There are also adjacent roles where you could be data analyst or support engineer even, but you're practically coding the whole day because that's the need. They need to automate. So not all awesome Python jobs might occur under Python developer per se.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you could be the head of lab automation at a medical research lab, and it doesn't say programming hardly anywhere, right? But that's what you do. Very cool. Finally, number 5. Let's close it out, Julian.
All right, so I'll kick this one off, and Bob and I are both going to talk about this one. So one of the often overlooked pieces of the job hunt is mindset, right? So when it comes to landing a Python job or any job, this is pretty generic advice on this one. You have to manage your self-doubt. You have to have and build a robust mindset around success, around failure, around how you look at the situation. So like I touched on the interview, when you don't succeed at one thing, what are you going to tell yourself to pick yourself back up and keep going? You have to accept and know that it's okay to not know everything. As we often say, you don't know what you don't know, and that's okay. One of the mindset tips around that is, well, if you do approach a situation where you don't know something, what is your approach to that? What do you say to a recruiter, to a hiring manager, to anyone when they ask you a question that you don't know the answer to? Do you freak out and start sweating and start stuttering and you don't know? Or do you actually just take a moment of silence to be thoughtful and come up with a thoughtful reply like, you know what? I don't actually know that, but I have experience in this area and I can figure that out if you give me, half an hour, something like that. So how are you going to have these discussions with people? What are you going to tell yourself? Accept that imposter syndrome is real, right? In fact, and one of the other things we say as well is that real imposters don't have imposter syndrome. So the people who say, I don't have imposter syndrome, I'm always fine, they're the real imposters, right? It's a lie. So if you feel uncomfortable, like you are doing something scary, that's a good thing, right? That's the mindset to adopt. That means one of the quotes I heard from LeVar Burton, I was taking one of his masterclasses a year ago, was fear is just excitement waiting to come out. And I really like that.
Love that.
So that every time you're feeling jittery and you're afraid to do something like get up and talk or go for that interview, that's just you being excited about it. So these are all just little things you can do in your head and that you can tell yourself to give you that mental fortitude to get through those tricky situations.
There are the most talented developers. We have seen quotes on Twitter admitting that they have imposter syndrome. So everybody has it, and everybody has been a beginner. So maybe then to turn it into some practical tips, because it can be very hard to go at this alone as a developer. You will get stuck. It seems like you don't know nothing. That why you will feel dumb at times, etc., etc. So get an accountability buddy or partner. Have somebody to regularly check in with. And to get you out of a rut, right? Or at least get a rubber duck, right? Do rubber duck debugging, or ChatGPT can even help. But no, better like a human person, right? Where you have periodic meetings, and that's super helpful, right? And you will see that other person also has imposter syndrome. So it's again what we tell ourselves versus what's the real situation in the world. And then secondly, keep track of your successes, because it's very easy to forget about all the awesome things you have done. Because again, we get that little voice in our head that just dominates, right? But if you keep a success wall or a wins file, which, for example, Julian and myself, being accountability buddies, are updating every Monday, you have this whole track record of cool things that you've done and that actually show that you're capable, right? And then you can just go back to that log, and it reminds you that, yeah, you actually are doing awesome things. So we found that really helpful to keep a thread of confidence and not just get down on ourselves.
I agree that the mindset stuff, it's super important, and it really can make a big difference. It's also what feels hard and what feels intimidating in the moment is not always going to feel that way.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. If all this database stuff I'm trying to work with, it's super hard, and why is it always so complicated? Why do I always mess this up? And if you do it for a while, do it for 6 months, for a year, all of a sudden it's like riding a bike. You kind of forget about how you steer. I want to go there, and you just go there, right? I want to talk to the database. Okay, no problem. That's no big deal. And so realize that the things that seem hard are not going to stay hard for the most part, right? And just put yourself out there. I really like those nerves are a sign of excitement if you're just willing to interpret it that way. I totally buy that and agree with it.
Just to your point, Mike, with the things just become so familiar. That's also why the wins file and that success tracking is important, because you can reflect on where you came from. Yeah. And you can go, oh, wow, I wrote down as a success 6 months ago that I did my first database model.
Yeah.
And then you look at it now going, I did that in my sleep, and so you really can see your progress and build your confidence. So the mindset thing could be 3 hours worth of conversation. So I won't go into any more depth, but that's my gem. And one last thing I'll say is there are probably billions of dollars being spent on mindset related material and books and courses and all sorts of stuff. So it's real. It's something that we do need to focus on that does make a difference. So, keep that in mind, pun intended, but don't belittle it and don't think that it's not important, because totally is a huge piece of this game. It's what gets people that success and what leads to people giving up if they don't focus on it.
Yeah, it's the compounding interest that doesn't seem like a big deal, but over time, it just adds a little more. And look, it just added a little more, and just got over that hurdle. The other people didn't get over it, and eventually you're like, wow, look where I am. How did I get up here so high? This is great.
Well, and sometimes people also don't realize it that the mindset actually stood in the way. Like they might not have taken that risk going outside of their comfort zone because of mindset, but they might not recognize it. So it's also awareness piece. But I will stop. We can talk for mindset hours. It's really
So we're gonna do a 2-day live stream on mindset now. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. So summary: tech skills, they're table stakes, right? They won't get you the job necessarily, but without them, it's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Put yourself out there, make some connections, show your work, GitHub repo, tech blog. practice the interviewing and focus on having a positive mindset, and so you can put yourself out there.
Perfect.
Yeah. Julian, Bob, thank you for being on the channel. I know you guys have this coaching program. I'll put a link to that in the video notes so people can check that out as well if they like.
Perfect. We'd love to
Awesome.
see you. But Mike, pleasure as always, mate. It's so good to see you. Like I said before we recorded, I don't think we've seen you in person for like 3-4 years now, which is really sad.
Too long.
Yeah,
Too
we'll get
long.
back together soon. It has been too long. We are basically equidistant, spread apart three different locations on the globe. It's not easy, but we'll make it happen. Thanks
Yeah.
for being on the channel, guys.
Pleasure. All
Nice
right.
to see you.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Mike. See you, everyone.